Hey y'all, it's your girl Missniecytv, and I'm here to do a review for Sistas Season 6, Episode 20. The episode starts off with Danny trying to sneak in the house after being with the girls all night. And Preston's like, you thought I was asleep or did you want me to be asleep? Danny's like, I thought you'd be asleep. Preston's like, oh, how was work? Did anything interesting happen? Do you want to talk about today? And Danny's like, not really, a lot of stuff went down. Preston's like, well, you told me you would talk to me when you got off work, and I really want to talk. I've been sitting here all day waiting to talk to you. Danny's like, well, I don't really want to talk right now. I'm going to take a shower and go to bed. Preston's like, well, did you release the gift I left for you in your car? Danny's like, I actually forgot it at work. Preston's like, of course you did. Danny's like, I know you want to have this conversation right now. I don't. I'm actually going to take a shower and go to bed. Preston's like, well, let the cans roll down the road and I'll just wait for you to have the conversation. Preston's like, I was being sarcastic. Danny was like, well, that's not good. Then we see Zach and Fatima at Heather's house, and Zach is asking Heather what happened because they got a call from neighbors saying that there was ambulances outside. Heather's like, what are you doing here? Why are you here? Zach is like, we came to check on Michael. Zach is like, well, what happened to you? She's like, I cut my arm on some glass. It looks like one of her other boyfriends is standing in the corner, because as she's saying that, she's looking over at him. And then Zach is like, well, we can't leave him here. Heather kept telling Zach and Fatima to leave, and if they don't leave, she was calling the cops. And Fatima was like, look, Heather, I just want to talk to you. And Heather was like, well, what you gonna do, hit me again? Heather yells in the other room, yes, son, this lady hit your mama, and she's a mean bee. Zach is like, don't use that language around my son. Heather was like, you wouldn't have to hear it if you leave. Zach is like, I just want to check on Michael, see if he's alright, nothing better be wrong with him. That's when the cops show up, and they're like, we hear that there was a domestic disturbance here. Zach and Fatima say, well, it's not us. The cops say, who lives here? And Fatima says, her. The cops say, well, what happened here? Heather said, I cut my arm on some glass. Zach and Fatima say, we just came here to check on our son. The cop is like, you're the child's father, aren't you? Zach is like, yeah, we already discussed this. The cop is like, I think you should leave. Heather's like, yeah, they should go, and I knew who called y'all too. It was that nosy neighbor. And then Cheryl comes by and gives her a couple middle fingers. And then Heather's like, don't be at my door either. Outside of Heather's house, we see Zach and Fatima talking to Cheryl, and she's like, if the girl calls me a B again, y'all won't have to worry about getting custody, because I'm gonna beat her up myself. I would do it for some money, but actually do it for a pack of cigarettes. Zach is like, I like her. Zach is like, I'll call you if I need some help. Fatima's like, Zach, you can't be saying stuff like that. Then we see Karen get a call from Brian, and he's calling her to let her know that they're ready to start working on the repairs. And he's like, can you come by? Because I want to talk about this in person. And he's like, by the way, I actually told my wife that you're having a baby, so she loaded my truck with some baby clothes. Karen was like, oh, thank you. I actually need it, and if I don't have use for anything, I know somebody who does. After Karen gets off the phone with Brian, she calls Fatima and she asks her, I have a question to ask you. Fatima's like, what is it? Karen's like, do you think Zach will want some clothes for his son? I'm working with this contractor and he knows that I'm expecting, so him and his wife decided to donate me some clothes, and it's a lot, so I don't know if there's some stuff that I can use and some stuff that I can't, and I don't want it to go to waste. And Fatima's like, I don't know, but I'll ask him. Karen's like, thank you. And as soon as Karen hangs up the phone, Fatima's like, what the heck was that? It's the next morning, and we see Preston and Danny, and Preston wakes up Danny 2 hours early before she has to go to work so that they can have the conversation. And let me say, Preston ate Danny up. Danny's like, do you have to be so loud and start slamming doors and stuff? I'm trying to sleep. Danny's like, well, I at least have 2 hours before I have to go to work. Preston's like, I know, that's why I want to have this conversation now. Preston basically asks Danny if she's sleeping with the guy at the airport. She says no, but since you think I sleep with him, I actually just might. Preston says, what does that mean for us? And Danny's like, you tell me. You don't want to start. Preston tells her that she's not ready to commit any. Also told her the only reason she picked him was because she went out there and chose the wrong guy and got herself hurt, and Preston was the one who saved her. So she did it out of convenience. Preston was like, if that guy wasn't such an a-hole, would I even be here? Danny was like, I don't know. And Preston was like, how is that supposed to make me feel? Danny was like, you want the truth? Preston was like, you darn right I do. Danny was like, don't use that tone with me. And Preston was like, so my tone is the problem, not our actual conversation. Preston was like, Danny, you know what? I've actually been too nice to you, and I hope that guy at the airport can protect you. Preston was like, I'm gone. I'm done. Danny was like, okay. And Preston was like, that's all you gotta say? Danny was like, you just running like you always do. Preston was like, I never run. If I run, it's because you made me do it. And Preston was like, you know what's crazy? I love you and I always will love you no matter who you date or you sleep with. But what's crazy is I know you won't love me the same way. Danny was like, okay, Preston. Danny also said, how are you gonna call me a hoe and tell me you love me in the same breath? Preston was like, I didn't do that. You know what, Danny? F you. And he leaves. I'm like, yes, Preston, you didn't have to eat her up like that. You ate her up, took the plate, and left. Then we see Andy, and she's getting a phone call from Jordan, and he was like, I'm sorry about what happened last night. Andy said, how's your sister doing? Jordan was like, she's not good. Actually, she cried herself to sleep last night. Andy was like, tell her I'm sorry. Jordan was like, actually, she has some questions for you, and she wants to talk to you. Andy was like, I don't know if I can do that right now. Andy was like, I actually have a question for you. Did you know Gary well? And Jordan was like, no. We were actually getting to know him, but I don't know him well. Jordan was like, he's a grimy nigga. And Andy was like, I'm not gonna do that. Then we see Karen come up to Andy's house, and Andy's like, what are you doing here? Karen's like, I just came to check on you. Andy was like, am I stupid? Am I an idiot? Karen was like, he's just a devil and he's good at hiding his tracks, so no, you weren't wrong. Andy was like, Karen, tell me the truth. Andy was like, was I blind? Karen was like, no, you were just in love. And I'm like, this is the blind leading the blind. How are you going to ask somebody for relationship advice when they were delusional themselves over a man that they thought loved them and still in love with them while they're in a whole another relationship? Andy was like, word. Karen was like, you still in love with him? Andy was like, you can't just turn love off like that. You out of all people know that. Andy was telling Karen that she blocked Gary's number and now she wants to run him over with the car. And Karen was like, I'm proud of you for blocking his number. Then Andy starts writing out a check and we forgot that's the real reason that Karen came over. Then back over at Danny's, Sabrina comes over and she sees Danny crying and she's like, what's wrong? Danny was like, it's Preston. Sabrina was like, what happened? Danny said, well, we had a conversation and he called me a hoe. He also told me it was over, and Sabrina was like, why would he do that? And I'm like, Danny, he didn't even call you a hoe. You're just mad that he told the truth and you know that you lost out on a good guy that you will never get again. And you're hoping that you will find it in Tony, but you don't even know him like that. Sabrina's like, that's not right, but forget Preston. You have Tony now and you should go out with him. Sabrina was like, I just came over here to tell you that I'm on my way to a meeting with my boss to see if I can get my job back. Whereas Zach and Fatima, Zach is still having trouble eating because he's still worried about Michael. Because the day is the day that they're supposed to have the meeting with the judge to see what's going on with custody. And Zach is like, well, can we meet him over there now? Fatima's like, no, he's still in chambers, so there's nothing that we could really do. But Fatima also tells him that Karen called and told him that she has baby clothes that she would want to give to him for his son. And Zach is like, is she okay because she's being too nice? And Fatima's like, let's just take it one day at a time. Over at the airport, Danny is talking to Tony and they're talking about what happened last night and how they should have beat Gary's behind because nobody deserves to be treated like that. And this is when we also found out that the van that Tony has belonged to his father. Tony and Danny are only children, and Tony is the vice president at the airport. Over at the salon, we see Karen talking to Brian, and Brian's like, I have something to show you. I want to show you this render that one of my students made for the design of your shop. And Karen was like, students? Brian was like, yeah, I teach football. Brian was like, speaking of students, as Tony grabs the bag out of his truck and hands it to Karen. Brian was like, after I told my wife that you were expecting a baby, she loaded my truck with all these babies. After they spend time talking about the baby and Brian's telling Karen that motherhood will be the best part of her life, they start talking about the salon again, and Brian lets her know that the cost of the new design will be the same if she moved into the new building that he owns. He was like, I actually want to take you to go see it. You want to ride with me? And Karen was like, what would your wife think? And Brian was like, my wife ain't worried about me. Karen was like, you sure? Then she agrees to take the ride with him after she tells him that she'll meet him there all because he said his wife isn't worried about him. Girl, you know this man is flirting. Why are you flirting with this married man that has 7 children? Over at Hayden's house, we see Hayden coming out of his house with Tamara as he's leaving for work and they're being all lovey-dovey. Then he shows up with an envelope in his hand. And Hayden was like, don't you see Tamara standing here? Gary was like, hi, Tamara. Hayden was like, I don't know what your problem is, and you might be bitter from last night, but don't come up here disrespecting me and my wife and not saying hi. I was like, yes, Hayden, you better stand up for your woman. By then, Tamara goes in the house. Gary hands Hayden the envelope, and he's like, read it. I want you to look at it. Hayden's like, what is it? Gary was like, hi, my PI followed Tamara, and she's not who she says she is. She's a plant. She works for Fatima's cousin, Madam. And they said this all up. Hayden's in denial, and he can't believe all of this. And so he said, if this is true, I'm going to make life a living hell, and I'm going to destroy her. And I'm like, oh my god, this is going to be the never-ending cycle of Hayden shenanigans. I actually feel bad for him because I could tell that he loved Tamara. Gary is just bitter, and he wanted to see somebody down while he's down. Let me know what you guys think about the episode. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on your bell notifications. Bye!